At this time, it is my honor and privilege to introduce the president of the Lost Soldiers Foundation, my co-director, Senator James H. Webb, Jr.
Good morning, everyone. Chào quý vị, các ông, các bà, các cao cấp, anh em cựu chiến binh Việt Nam Cộng Hòa. I'd like to welcome all of you and thank you for coming to this fifth anniversary celebration of the interment of the 81 lost soldiers who had been in different circumstances and not able to have a burial place, a resting place for more than 50 years. There are many notables here. I'd like to thank also all the people that it took to put together this event, all the canopies and the chairs that are out, the singers, the larger groups led principally by Nina Castagnetti, and this children's choir, which gave such a moving version of both of the songs that it sang. And I'd like to especially also to thank the United States Marine Corps for showing up here today, to coming to share this event. It cements a bond that the United States Marine Corps has had with the people of Vietnam, South Vietnam, and our cohorts who fought together on a very, very brutal battlefield. And it was just something that I had asked for, just to reassert how strongly the United States Marine Corps supports what you did in Vietnam and what you have done since you came back. I'd like to express my thanks for Mayor Chi Charlie Nguyen, who has come today. Are you here? Thank you so much for coming. I'd also, although former Mayor Trita is not here with us today, he's doing a lot of work as a state delegate. I'd like to thank him for all the work that he did 5 years ago to help this event take place. And I'd like to just say something about how effective, in my view and in the view of those who served with me in the Marine Corps and our veterans here, the courage and effectiveness that Trita has had since he's been in the state legislature. I think most of you are familiar what had happened a few months ago when the LA County Council was voting to make April 30th in honor of Jane Fonda. Jane Fonda Day would be April 30th of every year. And I think all of us here probably agree that it's a particularly delicate year for even that to be mentioned, coming up on the 50th anniversary of the fall of South Vietnam. Trita, I followed his position all the way in Virginia, where he turned that around, and he made sure that did not happen. And when the 50th anniversary or 50th year of the fall of South Vietnam is remembered next April, we won't have to worry about that. 5 years ago, we met here in Freedom Park to celebrate an accomplishment that many people believed was diplomatically impossible: to bring to America the remains of 81 South Vietnamese soldiers who had died in Vietnam in 1965, but who for more than 50 years had been denied an honorable place of rest in any country. The remote crash site in the mountains where they'd lost their lives was not reached until 1974, 9 years later, and only months before the fall of South Vietnam. The remains were shipped to the American Embassy in Thailand and then forwarded to an American military facility in Hawaii, where they remained for 33 years. The Hanoi government twice refused to allow their repatriation to Vietnam. And it was against American policy to allow the shipment and burial of 81 commingled foreign remains inside the country who could not be identified individually and had no documentable connections with America. They were simply viewed as unidentifiable Vietnamese soldiers, rejected by their place of birth and not allowed a burial here. They had become lost soldiers, men without a country, being stored on the shelves of an office building in Hawaii, maybe forever, unless something was done. And we did get it done. We formed a small foundation with 4 active principals, all of whom are here today to celebrate this moment. Jeffrey McFadden, who is your Master of Ceremonies today, a Naval Academy graduate and attorney, to do our legal work and media relations. Retired Marine Colonel Gino Castagnetti, a superb combat leader in Vietnam with whom I served in the 1st Battalion, 5th Marines in Quang Nam, and for years the director of the famous Punch Bowl Cemetery in Hawaii. Tui Le Tui, a longtime friend, business partner who coordinated with the Vietnamese community to direct the decisions of the foundation, and myself to do exactly that while working on government policies. We did this work for 2 years, the small foundation, steadily and continually, without compensation, to bring these soldiers to an honorable resting place here in America. Like so many of you, their native country had rejected them because of their service in the cause of freedom. Now, like many of you, America has welcomed them. America will always be known as their second and permanent home. Let's see a few words about the significance of this event. We are remembering many things today, each of you with some of your own memories, honoring the sacrifices of those who went before us in a very difficult war while serving the cause of freedom. But there is power and strength in remembering that cause in which these 81 soldiers fought. Because today, here in America, we do live in freedom. We know what it means, and I'd like to say we know what it feels like. Their sacrifice, as with so many others who did not survive, reminds us, as we live the rest of our lives, to take advantage of the years which fate took away from them and the opportunities that have allowed so many of you to demonstrate the power and the contributions of the Vietnamese culture to America. Tôi xin chào Thiếu Nguyen Van Hong, Chairman of the Coalition of Former ARVN Military Associations. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Jim Webb. On behalf of, a chairman of, coalition of, Southern California, with all, thank you, the Lost Soldier Foundation, invite us come here and, join the 5-year, anniversary of, burial of, 81, airborne. Kính thưa quý vị, anh em chúng tôi, Liên hội Cựu chiến sĩ Việt Nam Cộng hòa, miền Nam California, rất hân hạnh để cảm ơn The Lost Soldier Foundation, cảm ơn cựu thượng nghị sĩ Jim Webb, cựu đại tá Ginny Cataniti và phu nhân cùng phái đoàn của Lost Soldier Foundation. Thưa quý vị, cách đây 5 năm về trước, vào ngày 26 tháng 10 năm 2019, cũng tại nơi đây, chúng ta đã chứng kiến một buổi lễ rất trang trọng để di quan 81 xương cốt của chiến sĩ đại đội 72 nhảy dù về an táng tại nghĩa trang thuyền nhân. Thưa quý vị, chúng tôi cũng xin sơ lược lại vài hàng về đại đội 72. Thưa quý vị, trước ngày 11 tháng 12 năm 1965, đại đội 72 sau những tháng ngày truy lùng giặc cộng trong rừng sâu nước độc, các anh được trở về để chuẩn bị nghỉ dưỡng quân trong 1-2 tháng, rồi sau đó sẽ tiếp tục những cuộc hành quân kế tiếp. Nhưng bất thình lình được lệnh từ quân khu 2, đại đội 72 phải đi tiếp viện cho sư đoàn Bạch Mã của Đại Hàn ở Tuy Hòa. Thưa quý vị, chiếc phi cơ C-123 đã chuyên chở các anh trong một thời tiết xấu, và theo trọng tải của chiếc phi cơ C-123 chỉ chở được khoảng 60 người và quân trang quân dụng. Nhưng vì nhu cầu chiến tranh, nhu cầu cấp bách của chiến trường, vì vậy 81 chiến sĩ nhảy dù của đại đội 72 đã phải load in trên cái C-123 với lại 2 phi công và 4 phi hành đoàn. Trong một thời tiết khắc nghiệt như vậy, sương mù phủ kín, rừng sâu, núi thẳm đã khiến cho chiếc phi cơ 123 đã bị ngâm lặn vào ngày 11 tháng 12 năm 1965, mang theo 81 chiến sĩ nhảy dù, 2 phi hành đoàn và 2 phi công. Xin quý vị dành 1 phút lắng đọng. Sau ngày rớt phi cơ, không lực Hoa Kỳ và không quân Việt Nam Cộng Hòa đã ra công để tìm kiếm nơi địa điểm chiếc phi cơ bị rớt, nhưng vô vọng. Cho mãi đến ngày tháng 6 năm 1974, nhờ tiểu phu chính phủ Hoa Kỳ mới đến địa điểm của chiếc phi cơ rớt và đã mang tất cả 81 hài cốt, xương cốt của 81 tử sĩ và 4 phi hành đoàn của chiếc phi cơ C-123. Họ đưa sang Thái Lan, họ đưa về Hawaii. Như quý vị cũng vừa nghe, cựu thượng nghị sĩ Jim Webb đã tường trình sơ về những cái diễn tiến vừa qua khi bốc những anh em về tới Hawaii. Ở nơi đó, ở trong phòng lab, họ đã tách ra 4 người quân nhân Hoa Kỳ, trong đó có 2 phi công và 2 phi hành đoàn, được chôn tại Arlington, nghĩa trang Arlington. Còn 81 tử sĩ nhảy dù đã phải nằm ở trên shell, và nằm đó cho đến lúc cựu thượng nghị sĩ Jim Webb là President of the Lost Soldier Foundation đã can thiệp liên hệ với chính phủ Hoa Kỳ. Và thưa quý vị đã thấy vào ngày 26 tháng 10 năm 2019, buổi lễ chính thức tại nơi đây đã di quan và đưa các anh an táng vào nghĩa trang của thành phố Westminster. Nhân đây chúng tôi cũng xin đại diện cho anh em cựu quân nhân ở miền Nam California và đồng hương của miền Nam California thành thật cảm ơn tổ chức The Lost Soldier Foundation, cảm ơn cựu thượng nghị sĩ Jim Webb, cảm ơn cựu đại tá Ginny Katagniti và phu nhân, và cùng cảm ơn tất cả quý vị đã hiện diện ngày hôm nay để kỷ niệm 5 năm ngày an táng 81 tử sĩ nhảy dù của quân lực Việt Nam Cộng Hòa. Và chúng tôi xin hô lớn Việt Nam Cộng Hòa, quý vị muôn năm nhé. Việt Nam Cộng Hòa! Việt Nam Cộng Hòa! Việt Nam Cộng Hòa! Xin thành thật cảm ơn quý vị.
Thank you, Jeff. It's a real pleasure and an honor for me to introduce this keynote speaker. He's a little young for our war in Vietnam, but he, in my view, is the finest general officer in the United States Marine Corps in his era, which is this era right now. George W. Smith, Jr., comes from a military background. Actually, one of the reasons I asked him to come was that his father, George W. Smith Sr., was known as one of the finest battalion commanders in Vietnam in the Marine Corps. There's a family tradition here. George Smith, General George Smith, had an absolutely exemplary career in the United States Marine Corps as a career infantry officer. He had multiple roles in Iraq and Afghanistan, in straight infantry and also in reconnaissance. He also commanded the basic school in Quantico, which is the sort of the seed place for the training of all incoming officers in the Marine Corps. And he finalized his career not far from here at Camp Pendleton as the commanding officer of 1 MEF, which is the largest combat entity in the United States Marine Corps. He was commanding 48,000 Marines. He is well known as having worked in the Defense Department during his career, and I've had a tremendous respect for him. I've watched many of the positions that he took in an honest way during his career. So with that, I will ask General Smith to come up and give us our keynote speech. We're very pleased that you were able to be with us.
You walk over the bridge. Gunfire echoes after you. Villages in the country are tinged with sorrow. You walk over the bridge. A gentle breeze blows, carrying your heart to an unknown place. These lines from the song "In the Evening You Walk" by Trinh Quang Chun describes a young woman grieving the death of a young South Vietnamese soldier, and by extension, a people mourning the loss of so many loved ones like those we honor here today. I am deeply humbled to join all assembled here this morning to stand in salute to the 81 airborne soldiers of the 72nd Company, 7th Airborne Battalion, Army of the Republic of Vietnam, who are laid at rest nearby after a long journey that began nearly 6 decades ago. Today, we honor all members of the Army of the Republic of Vietnam who fought, suffered, and sacrificed so much in the name of freedom. I am grateful to Senator Webb for his kind invitation to join in this remembrance, and for his continued dedication to our military veterans, Americans and Vietnamese alike, and to the Lost Soldiers Foundation for the Herculean effort to keep these soldiers' memories alive through these many years. And most importantly, to the citizens of Westminster for your steadfast devotion to those we honor today. And through that devotion, the example you have so impressively set for your fellow citizens, not only here in your local community, but across our nation. you have taken that unknown place from the song and turned it into an eternal home for these patriots right here in the heart of Southern California. American versions of the history of the Vietnam War are routinely incomplete. The story of the Army of the Republic of Vietnam has been largely hidden from history, to include, sadly, from most Americans. Few know of the heroic fighting and incredible sacrifice of the Republic of Vietnam Armed Forces. The battles won against increasingly heavier odds as the United States withdrew its forces and its material support steadily declined. Former American Airborne Advisor General Barry McCaffrey noted, "Those of us privileged to serve with the ARVN Airborne were awestruck by their courage and tactical aggressiveness. The senior officers and non-commissioned officers were incredibly competent and battle-hardened." And often lost in the U.S. historical accounts are the sobering South Vietnamese losses. More than 250,000 soldiers killed in the war over the course of 2 decades, with wounded in action numbering more than 783,000. In 1972 alone, Republic of Vietnam Armed Forces combat deaths numbered nearly 40,000. As Neil Jameson wrote in Understanding Vietnam, about 1 in every 5 soldiers, perhaps 1 of every 20 adult males, was killed or seriously wounded while fighting for the government. Since virtually every soldier who was killed or wounded had a wife, parents, children, brothers, sisters, and friends who were affected, there were few people in this society whose lives were not blighted by deep personal loss. Remembrance ceremonies like this gathering today ensure that the broader national sacrifice of the South Vietnamese people remains invisible no more. And nearly a half-century removed from the end of the war, this day also pays tribute to the many gathered here this morning who sustained injuries in combat, who were one of more than 1 million soldiers, civil servants, and teachers who spent years in prison in the bamboo gulag that encompassed the hundreds of post-war communist re-education camps, who lost loved ones in the 2 decades of war or the brutal aftermath, who were forced to painfully distance themselves from their families to save them from guilt by association, and who ultimately endured perilous refugee journeys to rebuild their lives in a different country and culture. 50 years on, you have intertwined the fabric of Vietnam and America forever in communities like Westminster. And together, as Americans, we are richer and stronger for your remarkable resilience. As Senator Webb mentioned, my father served as a Marine infantry officer in Vietnam. A veteran of World War II in the Pacific and Korea, he commanded the 1st Battalion, 9th Marine Regiment during Operation Dewey Canyon in the Oshaw Valley in 1969. Like many veterans of his era, he spoke little of his combat experience. He did, however, reflect on the selflessness and sacrifice of those with whom he had the honor to serve beside in the fight to safeguard freedom for the Vietnamese people. My younger brother also served with distinction for 30 years as a Marine infantry officer. And again, as Senator Webb mentioned, I concluded my own service last year just down the road at Camp Pendleton with 1 Marine Expeditionary Force. Our Marine Corps motto, Semper Fidelis, always faithful, has been seared into our souls, most notably through the shared crucible of combat and the painful loss of comrades in arms. And as I look around the audience this morning, it strikes me that this community, this remembrance, is the epitome of Semper Fidelis, always faithful. Your unwavering faithfulness to the remains of these 81 paratroopers and the memories of all who endured unimaginable suffering and sacrifice in the defense of a young free republic is truly uplifting. The distinguished poet and orator Wallace Bruce simply stated, "Who kept the faith and fought the fight, the glory theirs, the duty ours." Indeed, the duty is ours. All gathered here today and throughout our great land have a solemn obligation to ensure our daily service, our daily example, are worthy of all those who, like these 81 heroes we remember today, made the ultimate sacrifice in the name of freedom. It is also our duty to help future generations truly understand the freedoms we all enjoy and the burden and sacrifice borne by so many, Americans and Vietnamese alike, to ensure those freedoms. Simply, freedom is not free. So let us depart here this morning inspired to better serve our communities, inspired to sacrifice just a little more in our daily lives, but most of all, inspired to never forget the lost soldiers and all their comrades in arms, Vietnamese and American, who gave their last full measure of devotion in service to their country. Thank you all for attending this morning. May God continue to bless our great nation and wonderful communities like Westminster with selfless patriots like those we honor today. Thank you.